Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Be kind. Rewind. Blockbuster. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, but something happened about a week ago that I was like, alright, it's time. So let me tell you about that, and then I'll share with you some of my fond memories. Somebody had shared a link into one of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, one of the gaming ones. I think it was one of the gaming ones, that apparently there's only one Blockbuster left in the world in Oregon, one or two more closed, so now there's literally just one left, and people go there as almost like a museum type of thing. Well, not a museum, but you know what I mean. So I was like, I read the article and everything, I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting, and then that same day, Review Tech USA did a video on it, and so, talking about memories he had there and everything. I remember he said that, talked about that there was this smell that whenever you went in there, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I forgot about that Blockbuster had this. It wasn't a bad smell like garbage or a good smell I don't know, scented candles or anything. It was just this distinct scent about the store that everyone you walked into one that I don't know what it was. But as he had mentioned in that video, how it's everything now is just a click away, and it's sad that kids won't be able to get those fond memories down the road, which is so true. It's such a unique experience going into a Blockbuster, and you don't get that same experience by just clicking a mouse or an iPhone or whatever. But so that being said, there used to be a Blockbuster down the street from my mom's house. I think there was another one in our hometown, which was Weymouth, but actually it was further down, but we always went to that one because it was right down the street. And it was fun. That store, that particular Blockbuster, the building is still there, which I'll get to later on in the video. But I gotta go back and forth between movies and games. I'll start with movies. There was, before the whole
DVD
thing, because when DVDs came out, the store was divided in half, so you had everything on VHS and everything in DVD. But before that, it was all VHS and obviously the games. But for the VHS, there was more sections, because it wasn't like I said, it wasn't the movies were divided in half between VHS and DVD. So it was there was, you had all your typical genres, your action, comedy, drama, sci-fi, horror, romance, yeah. I remember the sports section. There was actually a kids section and a family section, and there was always a movie playing in the background, on a big screen TV. I think it was a wall TV. It was always some new movie. And then the kids section, there was a little TV along with a couple of kids chairs and a kids table, and there was always a kids movie playing there. Over by one of the windows, there was it was almost like a U shape. There was the window, then I think on the left was where the counter was, and then on the right there was a big wall of all sports, which wasn't really my thing, but I think that was where they had a lot of the wrestling pay-per-views and stuff, because you could buy them on VHS. Well, now you can buy them on DVD, and obviously you can stream them, but there was where the hell was I going? Oh yeah, the movie sections. There was actually a cops and robbers section, I remember, which was where I used to always find Dick Tracy, because that was a movie my family really enjoyed. And then there was one particular bookcase, because it wasn't an entire section, it was just one bookcase that was anime. And I think that was partially how I got into anime, because my brother and I used to rent those all the time, especially the classic ones Vampire Hunter D, Lensman, Robot Carnival, which is Fantasia, but anime, Fist of the North Star, Wizards, which is technically not anime, it was a movie made by Ralph Bakshi, but it's actually a really good movie. But yeah, we used to rent those ones all the time. Friday nights when my mom would take me, my brother, and my sister down there, we'd each rent a movie or a game or something. I remember when the movie Surf Ninjas came out, we rented that, and I rented Mega Man 3, the game. And a funny thing with specifically 80s cartoons, I think they did this with a couple of 90s ones. I know they did it with Power Rangers, but I remember specifically 80s ones, Ninja Turtles and Transformers. You could get one episode on a single VHS tape. And they had a bunch of those there, like the Ninja Turtles ones. I used to always rent the Pizza Monsters one because that was one of my favorites. And it's funny to think about that, how it's like, back then these shows you get, like I said, one episode on a single VHS tape. Then about, it was like when I was in like the mid-2000s, early mid-2000s, you could fit about a dozen of them on a single DVD disc. And now, well, within literally in the past 10 years even, you can just stream them. You can watch all of them, like, as much as you want on, like, any kind of digital device or a PC or a gaming system or whatever. It's just funny to think about that, like, when you look back at how much technology has evolved. And, God, I remember, because my mom would always work, like, Friday and Saturday nights, and my stepfather would always rent a movie. Not always, but a lot of times he'd rent a movie and we'd all watch them with him. God, like, so many movies I remember watching with him. I'm not going to go down the whole list, but there's just a lot of them. Like, I remember, but I do remember one night he rented Starship Troopers, because that was a movie we really wanted to see. And he also rented an American Werewolf in Paris, so we watched both of those back to back. And I remember he rented a lot of B movies too, which my brother and I probably enjoyed those more than he did. There was one other one that I wanted to bring up. Oh yeah, there was this movie called The Relic, which is basically this scientist becomes like, he gets mutated into like a chimera type thing. Not the kind with the three heads like the lion and the snake and all that, but it was like the kind that's a combination of different animals, like, the head of a boar, the legs of a cheetah, the torso of a gorilla, that kind of thing. And then he, like, terrorized the museum or something. It was a pretty good movie. I remember he was dying to rent that, but it was always out. And it was funny because I think it came out in 97. It was one of those types of movies that it was like, they had, like, 20 copies. And because of the way Blockbuster was, you had the movie, and then you had, like, 3 or 4 behind them. So it was like, you figure, in this case, you do the math, say, like, 3 times 20, that's, 60. So it's like, how the hell do they run out of 60 copies? But a funny thing, my brother-in-law used to work at Blockbuster, and he said that was actually a trick. See, in these cases with these new movies, you had like 20 copies of The Relic. There wasn't 3 behind each of them, there was 1 behind each of them. Very clever. What's funny when I think back is like, about stuff like that, how it's like, let's go back to the year 95, 96, whatever, when Toy Story came out. Because it came out in theaters in 95, but, I don't know when it came out on VHS, like 95, 96, whatever, but, and imagine being, like, an employee in Blockbuster, and it was like, your boss gives you a couple $100 and says, like, okay, run over to Walmart and buy, like, 10 copies of Toy Story so we can rent them out to people. You know what's funny? I wouldn't mind doing that for a living. I mean, obviously not now, because this whole thing is like, video rental services are, like, obsolete, but it's just funny to think of that. And about games, my brother, because in the early 90s, chances are you had a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis. My brother had a Super Nintendo, so he would rent a Genesis and sometimes a game or two. Games that I remember him renting were all the Sonic games. I remember especially the third one, because that was where Knuckles debuted. He was like, oh my god, that guy's awesome. Still my favorite Sonic character. I remember him renting Rocket Knight Adventures, and what else? I remember he used to rent at least a couple of times. He rented the Genesis version of the first Mortal Kombat game just so we could see the blood and fatalities. A couple of times he rented Streets of Rage. I don't know if he ever rented the second or third one, but I remember him renting the first one. And although that one is very stiff compared to the second and third one, I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for it, just because of the fond memories of my brother renting it. I remember I always liked the character Adam, which he's never in any other games, which kind of disappointed me, but whatever. And for some reason, my brother had this thing with beat-em-ups that he would, mainly with beat-em-ups, he always picked the female character. I don't know why, I don't know if he remembers that, but I do. It's just a funny thing that, and yeah, that was the same thing. I remember when him and I were both renting a game, and I was like, I saw Peacekeepers, so I was like, oh, I'm renting this, and it was like, I saw Norton, who's on the cover, I was like, oh, I'm gonna pick that guy, who's actually a secret character, and he was like, I'm gonna pick the girl, her name was Echo, Um, I rented that, and he rented something else. I think he rented like a single player game or something. But um, I remember when we used to visit my dad because, well, saying my stepfather, obviously my parents are divorced. You'd obviously figure that out. We used to visit him on weekends, and my brother would rent a game. We'd rent a movie, and he would rent a game. My sister and I would each rent a movie, and we'd bring them over there with us. Like I remember him renting Resident Evil and Mega Man 8. I remember he rented Suikoden, the first one. Same with Super Nintendo games. I remember when he rented Pocky and Rocky 2, but he forgot a second controller. I remember one of the times I rented Mega Man X, and he rented Zero the Kamikaze Scroll, which, even though it sounds a weird name, it's actually a really good platformer for the Super Nintendo. And I don't remember him renting too many PS1 games other than those ones that I just mentioned. A lot of Super Nintendo games that he had rented from there. Gosh, more than I can remember. And I remember he used to rent the multi-tap thing so we could play Bomberman. Oh gosh, so many Super Nintendo games that he rented, which more than I can, like I said, that I can name. And a funny thing about Blockbuster, like I said, I'm going to go back and forth between movies and video games. I remember, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I used to love walking around a Blockbuster, even if it was because the stores were so small, and it was even if it was a movie, you were just looking at all the movies, even if it was I'm not really a fan of drama movies, or drama in general, but I would still walk through that section just kind of looking at all the movie titles and the cover art and stuff, and there was a couple of movies that I remember, even to this day, the ones that I remember seeing the cover art, but I could never remember the title. To this day, some of them I don't remember the title, but I still remember the cover art. Even some of them down the road, somebody introduced them to me. I'm like, oh my god, that's that movie that I remember seeing at Blockbuster. A couple of these were Dead Alive, which is a zombie. You have the woman on the cover going stretching her mouth out, and there's a skull in there. It's a zombie horror movie, but it's more goofy. Another one was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I just remember the cover with the holding up the grail, and then they're all sat inside of it. That's a hilarious movie. I got that on DVD back when I was in high school, because my friends and I used to talk about it all the time. But anyway, that was another thing I remember about going to Blockbuster. And me personally renting games, I rented a lot of Game Boy ones, when they started doing that. And actually, I remember my brother, speaking of him renting game consoles, I remember him renting a Sega CD. He rented Sewer Shark and Sonic the Hedgehog CD. I don't remember any of the other games. Funny, I remember Sega CD very vaguely. I don't remember the 32X. He also rented the, what the hell was that system called? The 3DO at one point, along with the Wing Commander 3. Even back then, I wasn't really impressed. At least I don't think I was, compared to the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, but yeah. And then for me, renting games, I remember renting, because I didn't have my first home console, other than the NES that my family owned. My own personal home console was the N64, and that wasn't until 2000, of Christmas 2000. And I remember renting, Bomberman 64, Rocket Robot on Wheels. I think I rented Quest 64 and didn't really get into it. What are some of the other games? I remember there was a Scooby-Doo game I wanted to rent, but they didn't have it, so I rented the Game Boy Color version instead. I remember renting Paper Mario. God, I love that game. What was the other one? I think I rented Rampage Roll Tour a couple of times. I remember I rented there was one for the PS1 called Through Time, which was kind of cool. I remember renting that. I remember renting Vandal Hearts 2 for the PS1. This is Pac-Man Maze Madness, because I was looking for the N64 version, but I couldn't find it, so I got the PS1 version. What the hell? There was one game I wanted to point out. I think I rented Wild Arms. I remember I rented a Digimon game. N64. Oh yeah. Oh, how could I forget this? I remember when Superman 64 came out. This is a funny story. Superman 64. God, I remember seeing the commercial, and I thought the plot sounded kind of cool. I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. So I remember seeing it at Blockbuster, and I'm pretty sure I had it in my hands. Like, I was literally planning to rent it, but at the last minute I rented something else instead of like, oh, this looks better. So I rented something else. And it was funny, like, a few years later, I learned about, like, the controversy of the game and, like, how it's literally one of the worst games of all time. So it's like, you looking back, I was like, wow, dodged a bullet there. That was one weekend I didn't waste, so to speak. Oh, boy. Yeah, I remember, you look at, like, the AVGN review of it, that's such a hilarious review. One of my favorite moments of that is when he's like, because I think that's just what, obviously it's just a character he created, but it's like one of those that he, like, I think it's one of those where he legit gets pissed, and it's like, I love the power, he's like, I don't even get to try again, I'm back at the fucking rings again. I remember Cygnus Destroyer did a good review of it too, and he really went into details, he, like, beat the game and everything, it's just, he points out even more flaws, I'm just like, wow. I remember renting too many GameCube games, although one in particular I do remember renting was Skies of Arcadia Legends, which was the director's cut of the Dreamcast game, and I think I've told the story before, it was one of the first GameCube games I rented, and because the glory of memory cards, I was like, within a few days of playing, I was like, I have to buy this, and shortly after I did, which, fortunately, like I said, the memory cards, and I still have it because that game is rare and expensive now. Those are some of the other things. Yeah, and then it was during that time I kind of started to lose interest in Blockbuster, because it was becoming, like, less and less relevant. I mean, On Demand had came out in the early 2000s, and that was much more convenient. Where was I? Yeah. On Demand had been around for a while, and then later, when streaming services like Netflix started coming out and stuff, Blockbuster just started like, drizzling out and stuff. And I think it's like one of those things, it's like a lot of situations where they're basically too late to pull the trigger or something. It's like the saying goes, evolve or die. And that's pretty much what happened to Blockbuster, along with a lot of places like Sears is another good example. And I remember, because I hadn't been to Blockbuster in years, it was around the time Netflix came out. A friend and I were on break at work, and I was just like, there was a commercial for Blockbuster where they were offering this special deal or something. I was just like, I said to my friend, like, Blockbuster, God, just give up already. And he's like, no shit, I mean, you guys were king for a while, but now you're just, like, really, cat's looking at me like funny. But even so, it was a shame to see Blockbuster go. That one that used to be at my mom's house did eventually close down in, like, the late 2000s. So I went there with my stepfather, and I bought, I think, Spectrobes for the Wii, and then I got Gremlins on DVD, because there wasn't a lot left. That was just kind of what I found. They were selling off all their stock. And that building is still there, like the exterior structure is still the same, but it's an H&R Block. It was vacant for years and eventually became an H&R Block, but because the outer structure is still the same, it's sad to see it go by there and just see that it's like, wow, that used to be a Blockbuster, and like the building is the same, it's just a different place. And even though, like, I don't really go to Blockbuster, like, if Blockbuster was still in my area, I probably wouldn't go there anymore, but it's just, I would have taken, like, my nephews there, or, because it's just, like, it's such a unique experience, like, you don't, like I said, and, like, Review Tech USA said, you don't get that same experience, and kids aren't going to have those, like, kids today that are, like, 5 or 6 years old, like, when they get into, like, their 20s, they're not going to have these memories that a lot of us have of, like, walking around a Blockbuster, like the ones that I just shared with you guys. So, yeah, it was sad to see them go, for a number of reasons, just because it's, like, a curious piece of history, so to speak, but just, again, like, because kids will never get that experience, because everything is a click away. But those are just some of my fond memories that I have with Blockbuster, so thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.